Hi guys, and welcome back here to the Dev Realm, and today we're going to be carrying on our inventory series, and this is the extra part. So what we're doing here is that in the previous episode we have now the split widget, which should look something like this. Now what I'm going to do right now is that carry on with the logic to make sure this works. So the very first thing we need to make sure now that we have the widget ready is to add a new option, which is the option to split. All right, so to do that we basically need to go here to the data table, and we need to go back to, I think it's called, actually I'm gonna do Control P and I'm gonna search for context. I think we have context menu, there we go, and here we need to add a new item and we're gonna call this split. All right, doesn't matter where you put the logic, to be honest, just keep it in there. Now, it shouldn't break anything else. Now we're going to go back to the item, and there are certain items that we want to split. For example, the sword and the chest, we don't care. We don't want to split that. But the sword, sorry, the apple is something that we would like to, let's say, split it, right? So, how can you do this? It's literally you go back here to the context menu and we're gonna add a new option and we're gonna call this option split, and that's it. I'm gonna add it right here, and now if you press play and let's say you get an apple, whatever, you should see split. Of course it's not doing anything right now, so we need to do that logic right now. So now in the BPC inventory, I think we have context, right? Context, add mapping, st. There we go. We have items to equip, right? But we have the, I'm just looking for reference by name. Where do we have that? Here. And there we go. So we have the an equip item, handle the item usage. And then we go all the information right here. So we need to search now for the widget called context, because if you remember, that's the widget where things happen. So go back to the context menu, go back to the graph, and then in here is where we have when the player unequip the item. So we can make this a nice color. When the player use the item, and when the player drop, and this one I'm just gonna make sure they're red. Now we need another one called split, so we need to, I'm just gonna actually add more space for us to work here, because right now it's a little bit crowded, right? I don't like to work with spaghetti nodes, as I like to say here, but okay, right. So now let's do the logic to split. So the very first thing we gotta do here is that, so we have the item swap logic, and then I'm going to add another one. I'm going to copy those three. Actually, I'm just going to create here a custom event, and I'm going to call this API, and I'm going to call this item split, right? Item split, and it's going to be run first on the client, all right? Item split. Now this must be reliable, runs on the client and must be reliable. That's great. I'm going to copy and paste. Now we are going to go back here and we're going to do server, and we are just going to copy and paste, and then we're going to do this. Oh, we're going to do this multicast. Now the next thing I would like to do is make sure this runs on a multicast and is reliable. Make sure this runs on the server, and then make sure this runs on your own client. Now what we need to do here is, of course, is just as we always do, we call that, and then we call this one, and that's it, right? Now guys, we need to basically do the split function for this item here, right? So the way the split works is that we need to basically pass the item and the new quantity that we want to add, and then we just need to remove the item, right? So we need here a couple of things. So we need basically the new item, and this is gonna be just called a normal array, and we're gonna call this the item quantity. All right, quantity, and this is going to be a integer. So it's gonna, how many items do we want to add of the item? So we put it here, right? And we do the same right here and then right there. Great. So now on the context menu, all we gotta do here is just get this stuff, right? Paste. Actually, I'm gonna copy this whole thing, delete it, paste it right here. Oh yeah, this is something we actually need to open up the widget. This is something that I actually forgot to do, but let's just carry on with the split and then we actually do that logic. So we pass the item. So in this case, let's say the split item, we pass everything here. Now I like to handle this within a function because it makes it easy for us to, let's say, control this. So I'm gonna add a new function and I'm gonna call this fn split item. And basically, I'm just gonna put this inside, let's say, stack item, sorry, inventory stack or something. And now what we're gonna do here is that we are gonna add the item, so we need, of course, the item that we want to add. This is gonna be the item, so it's gonna be st item. And the new quantity, right? The new, let's say, the new quantity that we want to add. So the first thing that we need to do is that we need to find the index of the item that we are trying to remove those items from. So basically, the best way to illustrate this is that in here on, let's say, paint, right? Oh, not that. Paint. So basically, we need to get here. So we have the slot item, which has, imagine, a bunch of small items from here, right? So all those objects there. So what we need to do is that we need to basically remove those items first. So we need to take this guy out, that guy out, this guy out, create a new structure, and then add those 3 items here. So that's what we're trying to do. So to do that, we need to handle this logic mostly here, mostly, not all of them. So first, the split item. So instead of call fn item split, I am gonna call this remove item quantity, right? And we're gonna compile and then we're gonna save this. Now I'm gonna get inventory here. I'm gonna break this information, and then from here I'm gonna do a for each loop, right? And then we're gonna call this item target or something. Put it right here. Okay, cool, nice. Now what we're gonna do here is that we need to break and we need to make sure that the slot ID match the item that we are trying to add here, right? We're gonna break here. We're gonna add this is the st item structure. No, what? Sorry, I forgot. What we need here is the st inventory. No, st slot. Slot. What we need here is this slot. Yes. And here as well, we need to change that to st slot. We don't want the item. The item is fine. We just want the slot, because if you remember on, not here, on the inventory items here, we are passing the item structure. So this should be also be the st slot. The slot, st slot, item slot, And then here as well should be the st item slot. There we go. Okay. So with everything updated, st item slot. I'm not sure why this is oh, sorry. I was updating the wrong one. I need to update this guy here. I don't know why I was doing the add item. Sorry. It should be st slot. And then st slot. And then the same here. st slot. Nice. Okay. Now let me just double check to make sure it didn't break anything. I don't think I broke anything. It's just, okay, that's fine. Everything is working the way we want it. Great. So now what we do here is that we call that function, right? The inventory stack here. So we need to call the here. Actually, I'm going to call this category called inventory management. Sorry, or inventory management. So now we pass the item and the quantity, right? Now what happened is that we need to remove the quantity first. So we got this information here, and we're gonna have put a variable called quantity to remove. And now we're gonna plug it here, and we're gonna plug it there. Great. Quantity to remove. Now, if we break this and this match, right? What we're gonna do is that we create a branch. And we do it right here. Also, on the for each, we do a for each loop with a break, because once the data match, I don't want to carry on the loop. I just want to make sure the loop is stopped. So if they match, everything's perfect here. So is the slot ID the same? Yes, everything's great. Now what we can do is that we can get here the inventory item, right? And we did something similar previously. So we get a reference and we use the index. Now what we're gonna do here is that we are gonna, for example, get so we're gonna break the item slot, and we're gonna break this, and we only care about the quantity that we already had here before, right? So we're gonna do this, subtract by, let's say, the quantity to remove. And then what you gotta do here, right, is that you wanna set, let's say, so you wanna set member that you would like to set here in this case is the quantity. So we're gonna put it right here, okay? And the quantity will be this, right? And then of course you are gonna stop the loop. And then what we gotta do here is that we do this information right here, right? There's one more thing here. I mean, you don't need to care about this point, but if this is less than 0, right? So we can actually, let's cover ourselves. Let's do it. I don't see why we shouldn't do this, but I mean, to be honest, we can, yeah, sure. We can create a branch. So if this is true, right? If it's less, so if it's false, we only care about to update the quantity, right? But if it's true, we basically, we don't want to do anything. We just want to set the structure to nothing. Actually, in this case, we can't do that really. No, what we're gonna do here is that we get, and then we need to set the member, and we just put the item, and we basically set to nothing, to 0, right? Just set to 0. And one thing we have to update, which is called full, we mark it as 0 as well, right? Because it's being deleted. So what we're trying to do here is, if the quantity minus the quantity to remove is less than 0, then we remove the item. Else, we just update the quantity, and then we carry on here, and we just do a return. All right. This, it's perfect because now here on the inventory items, we're just removing the item itself, right? Now, all we gotta do here is that we gotta copy the similar logic that we did from when we are adding the items, right? So I'm just gonna copy, what we gotta do here basically is, well, we will need to check how many free items does the player has before we can actually update this. So it's a little bit of a tricky logic that we're gonna do it, but let's just do it this later. Let's make sure that everything is working first. So we're gonna call here the API add item, and we're gonna call the client. Actually, we don't need to call this. Because what we can do here, guys, is, so it's gonna delete that. I don't know why it's not. Why is it not deleting? Anyway, so what we're gonna do here is that we need this logic. Yeah, we just need this whole logic here. We're gonna copy this whole logic. We could actually repurpose this, but for now, should be fine. I'm going to paste this here, and here we go. So we need now to basically call the fn split item. So we're going to get the item here. We're going to basically, we can promote maybe to local temp add split item. Sorry, temp add split item. I'm just going to add inside the inventory here. Now what we're going to do here, the reason why I created a temp, it's because it's a temporary item anyway, but we need to set the quantity. So what we're going to do here is that we basically need to break. Actually, to be honest, guys, we don't need to create a temp variable because we only care about the item. So all you're going to do is break that. Then we're going to break this. We're gonna set the member. This is gonna be the quantity that you like to add, which is gonna come from here, right? Can I actually make? No, it's fine. I'm just gonna delete it like right now. Now what we do is that the structure out is the item that we're gonna add. So we're setting the quantity. And then of course we do that whole process, and in case it's true, we add the item, and then we call the API reload the inventory. We do need to work out a better way of doing this, because right now it's a little bit messy, but we can maybe call this when the user split the item. Okay, when the user is split the item. Now what we're gonna do is that when we split the item here on the context menu, we need to call a different thing. So now let's open up here the main inventory name. So we're going to go back here. We're going to open up on widgets this. Now what we're going to do here is that we need to go to the event graph, and we need to go to the inventory UI, right? So here we're going to call this open and close the inventory. Sorry. The inventory info. Now we need a similar one, so we're just going to copy this, and we're going to call this API open split, and we're going to call this API close split. All right, now we got the inventory slot, so now we can create widget from class. This is going to be called a split, right? Split item, which is fine. Basically need to pass self, and one thing that I forgot to expose here on the split item is just that we need to make sure this item here is exposed on spawn, otherwise this whole thing won't work properly. Now we're gonna go back to the base inventory. We need to pass the inventory item, right? So we need to pass it there. So I'm just gonna call this item slot. I don't know why it's coming up with the same name. Anyway, item slot, we pass in there. And basically, we are just going to copy this logic here, right? Maybe you should consider doing that. Maybe a thing, I don't know, like a proper function, but I'm just gonna promote to variable and we're gonna call this item split. Split widget. Make sure that it's public, and where we are keeping all that, I mean, we don't keep anything, so I'm just gonna call, maybe I'm gonna put inside a category called split. So we're adding this here, we're adding that here as well. So we're setting the widgets to whatever is here, basically, and now we just do that logic here. I'm gonna copy that, paste it. All right, so we plug it here. If it's valid, we delete, otherwise we don't care what happened, right? And also on the close split, what we do is just, we call this open split. Open the item split menu, right? We can just call this split menu. So that's fine. Now the next thing that we gotta do here is that when the user on the mouse button down, we just need to basically call the API close split, right? Just so it closes that. Now on the context menu, what we gotta do here is copy this stuff, and we're gonna call the API split. No. What we need is the so API split. There we go. So what you gotta do, copy that. The item already have it here, so just plug it here. And now it's just the case to drag and drop right here, like that. Cool. Now we're gonna call this when the user split the item. Right. So we can maybe give a nice color to this. Now I do expect to find bugs. I don't expect this to work, but let's see what happened now. If we go back, yeah, item, and then I split. Now I have the windows here, so if I click it, it deleted. So if I do that, everything's still not that, which is good. I don't know why, but why is it doing this? So if I click it, okay, that's fine. So that everything working fine. So if I split it, and let's do, oh yeah, actually, we have to do the logic to add and decrease the button. For some reason, why is this not working properly? Let's check, because I remember that we actually create that logic to do it. Let's go back here to the widgets, and let's go back here to the splits, right? Open up. We do need to actually call the confirmation button, but that's fine for now. So let's see what's happening here. So we set that to 1, everything gets set to 0, which is fine. We get here. Well, let's try to do that. So when I click on add, so if I get the item, split. So I do have that. So it is adding. It's fine. But of course the split's not working properly. So what we can do, maybe here we do that. Print, right? I'm pretty sure that this is supposed to work fine. Why is the new quantity not decreasing? Right? That's a weird, I don't know why. Let's check. 4, 3. Oh yeah, of course, guys. Of course. Of course. We need to call the function, don't we? Like, I was trying to figure out why this is not working, but we need to just call the update the counter here. Otherwise it won't work, right? There you go. That's just, I forgot to do, that's a silly thing. So now if you open up, so if you do decrease, do increase, it's fine. Now we can confirm. Now the confirm needs to actually apply the change. Now here's where things get, and I'm not going to do this in this lesson, but here's where we have to do it. So now when we open the split menu right here, right on what is it, inventory UI here. When we add this to the inventory, we need to bind something to it first. And what we need to do here is that we need to get a split widgets, and we need to call this bind confirm. I think we call event on split item, right? Is that how we call that? Split items is how we call this. Sure, okay. Now what we gotta do here is we gotta create a custom event called, API widget split. It doesn't matter this name, honestly. But the thing that matters a lot now is that we need to get inventory ref, and we need to call it API split item and make sure we call the client, and then we're gonna pass this and plug it right here, and that's it. Now the last thing I forgot to do here is that every time you bind something, it's a good thing to unbind all the events from split before you remove the item, just to remove and avoid any potential memory leakage or something. Now, if we did everything right, this should in theory work fine. So if I split it, 3, did it work? Well, it did not work. So item split widget. So access none, try to read split item widget on EV. Oh, why bind event on that? Item info widget. Oh, sorry guys. I just did a silly mistake here. Again, I needed to add it here. This is what I mean by actually adding different colors, right? Because when you're adding with different colors, it's one less issue to handle, right? So I'm just gonna add it right here. Plug it right there. There we go. So this should work. Now I'm just gonna add different colors. So this is when you open inventory. So the context menu, we can just do this column. This is the inventory information, so we can put it red. And the split item menu information, we can put it here green. All right. Now we can do this, and let's just press play and see what is going to happen. So we add the stuff, and we're gonna split, and we're gonna confirm. And oh, look at that, we got the information added right here. Of course, it keeps bugging out, so we need to make sure that we delete this because it keeps bugging out. So when you confirm, you just call the API close split, right? Now we should work. Let's check. So we get the item, we go here, split, and I want to split in 3. So now I have 3 here. If I go back here and split in 1, and if I split in 1, now of course the splitting part, what we can actually do here as well is that on the context menu, well, this is not the best place to do it, but is a way of creating this, right? What we can do here is that we can break this, and we can also break this as well. And you can only display the split button if the quantity is greater than or greater or equal than, sorry, not greater or equal, if it's greater than 1. Otherwise, we don't care. Otherwise, what you're gonna split this for. Otherwise, we can even, I would even argue that the context menu option shouldn't be available. But I think that's fine. We can actually do this. So now if I press play and I get the item here and then I split here. So if I do minus, 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 so 1, it's fine. So if I try to split that, nothing works, which is what we would like to do it. Couple of issues that maybe you guys can figure out here is that if you have full items, so for example, I just go here, full slots, right? So I got all the full slots I can think of. So I got 1 here. So if I split this to, let's say, 4, we need to basically implement a logic to allow us to do that. So we need to check this first because I don't think this is gonna work out of the box. But yeah, guys, once again, thank you very much for watching. I'm aware this got very long, but I wanted to make sure we blasted through and finish this part of the tutorial. I do pretend to carry on with this series to add some more things, even because I would like to use this on my game as well. So, you guys feel free as well to use this on your own games. but I would like to add this to my own game as well. So I'm probably going to be adding a bunch of small improvements, and I'm going to be recording and using this opportunity to also teach you guys how I'm doing these things. And also you guys going to get this amazing, inventory here from scratch, which is something really, really, really cool. So once again, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I see you in the next one.